then people started figuring out different ways to make whiskeys. They would use more corn, or they would use more rye, they would use wheat, they would use barley. And so based off starters, ingredients, what you're using the most of, that's where whiskey starts to change. And it's very regional. That's why it goes along with where it's made quite a bit. You call Scotch whiskey Scotch because it's made in Scotland, but it's a specific style as well. You can't just call yourself a Scotch unless you're made in Scotland and do the right things the right way. Irish whiskey is the same way. Most Canadian whiskey, if you ever hear something called Canadian whiskey, it's a rye-based whiskey because they grow a lot of rye, but Scotch in Ireland is barley, and then along with that too, in the States, what's our biggest grain? Corn. So, American whiskey makers eventually very much started using corn as their base. So that's where things started to change in a big way. Because if you change your grain as far as your majority, it is going to change the final product as far as flavor and character. Corn-based whiskeys are naturally sweeter, so bourbon whiskeys and Tennessee whiskeys. Rye-based whiskeys are naturally spicier, and then barley kind of an in-between, really, in my opinion. So that's where it kind of started. And then people started figuring out things just within their own company or brand as well to figure things out. So you got whiskey, and then you've got Scotch whiskey, Irish whiskey, bourbon whiskey. Japan's working on their own style basically. Thailand's got one going. India makes its own whiskey style. But then Tennessee whiskey came out of bourbon. We don't deny that at all. In fact, a lot of people are wondering why we don't call ourselves a bourbon because there's so many similarities. But a good phrase to have in your head is Tennessee whiskey is born from a bourbon. We give them that nod whether they want it or not. Bourbon and whiskey standards, we meet every one. Everything bourbon does, we do, sure. But to be a Tennessee whiskey, you take that and you add the charcoal mellowing to it, we call it an extra blessing. And so this is the step that differs us.